All right, welcome back. This is Module 2, Lesson 1 about the shadow, the ego, and the saboteur. Like that saboteur. So part 1 is about the shadow, and in this part we'll talk about the persona, how the shadow is formed, projection, and the collective shadow. All right, so persona is what we present to other people, right? It's how we wish to be seen, and in our day and age, this can take the shape of our online avatars, right? And we can think of this as like the outside of a house, right? Passersby will see a certain image of that house, and they'll make assumptions of what that house is like inside, but they don't really know, right? All they get is that external, the external facade, right? So that's the persona, and we have control over that persona, right? We can paint our house a certain way, we can landscape our garden a specific way, so we have control over how that is seen and perceived by others, right? So that's our persona. Okay, so our ego is our conscious self. It's what we know about ourselves, informed by our memory and experience. It's a combination of our thoughts and emotions and memory, right? So think about this, the ego as being the inside of the house, right? So it's the inside of the house has your living room and your bedroom and your closets, and underneath the bed and the bathroom and the toilet and underneath the sink, right? So there's all these spaces, that's you, right? And this is all of you. This is your thoughts, these are your memories, these are the things that you want to hide but you know that they're there, right? And things that you have ready access to, right? Even things that you kind of forget, but you know are still there, right? This is our conscious. This is our conscious self, okay? And then the shadow would be the basement. So this is where we stuff everything that we don't want to be seen by anybody else, and things that we don't even want to look at ourselves, things that we forget about, right? But and we kind of forget that the shadow is even there. It's almost like you can even think about it as like the basement and like the trash can, right? Like the trash dump, right? It's the things that we feel like we don't need, and then we cast it away. So imagine that this house is self-contained, and anything that goes in will always stay in, and it doesn't ever really leave. So everything that we don't want to keep on the outside, and we don't really want to look at on the inside in our consciousness, we put into the shadow, right? So that's our unconscious self. These are the parts that we cast away, disown, refuse to face, the unacceptable, the wrong, and the other. All right? So how does the shadow form? Basically, when we are born, we come into the world as whole beings, right? We're pure consciousness coming into this material realm. We are undifferentiated, pure potential energy. And then as we grow, as we become socialized, then we begin to learn and internalize the beliefs from our parents, from our families, from our culture, right? We begin to distinguish between right and wrong, and then we take on these values and we live by them, and we begin to create that shadow space, right? So someone tells you, oh, don't do that. So you say, oh, okay, so I shouldn't do that, that's wrong, okay, I'm gonna put that away, I'm not going to do that, and I'm not gonna think about it, and I'm not gonna face it. So it goes into the shadow, right? And to survive, and we do this to survive and to fit in, which is necessary, right? So shadow making is a survival mechanism, and it's an essential part of existing in the world and creating logic and creating order in our lives. So there's nothing wrong necessarily with having a shadow. It just is, right? It's part of this experience. Okay, so a way to think about this is, rather than seeing your shadow as its own different character, right? Like the shadow, like I'm running away from my shadow, I'm turning away from my shadow, like it's this other thing that's trying to get you, right? A different way to think about this is instead consider it as a space, right? The storehouse of our lost memories, our fragmented thoughts, our emotions, our pieces, again, of unwanted, forgotten pieces of your greater wholeness, okay? So what happens to the things that we put into the shadow? Well, they don't really go away, right? And because they are a part of us, they find a way somehow to still be seen and to still be experienced by us, right? Because it's part of who we are, right? It's part of that yin that, so even if we're completely facing only the yang, there's still that little bit of yin that's connected to the big yin within us, right? So there's always going to be that, that shadow is always going to find ways to manifest in our conscious experience somehow or other, right? And we do this because, okay, what did I write here? So we learn to face only forward to the light, and then we push away. What we push away is still a part of us and seeks to be seen, acknowledged, and integrated. Yes, okay, I said that. So the more we store in the shadows, the more energy builds up for that to be acknowledged, for that to be integrated back into our experience, and it comes out sometimes in really unexpected ways. And it can come out in our own actions, like, why did I do that, right? Or it can also come back to us through reminders from the outside world, right? Like coincidences that remind us of the things that we are hiding from or that we refuse to face about ourselves, right? So the external reality then finds a way, really your spirit interacting with reality then creates situations in which you are forced to face what you are not wanting to face, right? Okay, so we project, we push out our shadow also onto others, and not only the dark parts of ourselves, right, but also the light aspect of ourselves. So talking about the dark aspects first, what that means is that when we see somebody and there's just something about them that we don't like, right? Like I really don't like how that person is so says something and they don't really follow through with it, right? So you feel this emotional reaction inside of you, right? And that's generally because something about that person and about how they are doing that is reminding you about that thing within you that is also that's a reflection of that, and that's why you feel a certain way about it, right? And this is kind of a difficult idea to really fully accept, to be honest, right? Because we don't want to feel and think that we are terrible people, right? Like we do so much to be good people, to be good, great, upstanding citizens or whatever, but we know this. We see this happening in the world around us, right? People attacking other people based on their own hypocrisy, right? Big example, like homophobic people are a lot of the times tend to be like closeted gay people, closeted homosexuals. So, they're projecting their hate, their discomfort onto other people because they refuse to face that thing that also exists inside of them. Okay? So that's the dark aspects of projection. Now, we also do project our lightness, our brightness onto other people, our gold, our the best parts of ourselves that we are uncomfortable of owning. We also project that onto other people. And that's, learning about this, I was like, whoa, okay, that's deep and really wild. Yeah, so we also project the best parts of ourselves that we disown. And hero worship or celebrity worship is a form of this, right? We worship these figures because we think, oh, we'll never be like them. Oh, she's so talented and beautiful. Like, I'll never be like that. We cut ourselves off from feeling those things about ourselves, and it's more comfortable for us to see it in other people. And we then can believe that, oh, that greatness only belongs to other people. That doesn't belong to me, right? So this is a way that we project our best parts onto others, and as a result of us not really facing our shadows and not really wanting to delve deeply into the wholeness of who we are. Okay? So falling in love is another type of this light shadow projection, right? Maybe gold shadow, I kind of like that. Yeah, so gold shadow projection onto other people. And it's this painful experience sometimes when we fall in love with people, and then that honeymoon phase wears off, right? Because that first time that we met them and that we're having this ecstatic experience, because we're seeing them as this like magnificent creature that we've never seen before, and we've that seem to fit all of our holes, physically and literally. and we're so enamored with this connection that feels like we've been like waiting for all our lives and searching for, right? And then when that experience wears off, then we begin to actually see them as they are, and then we fall out of love with them because we see, oh, you're not actually all of the great things that I had projected onto you. Like, oops. Oops. All right. So, that being said, the collective shadow. So while we do this personally, on a one-to-one level, this is also happening culturally, as a human organism, right? And this is another idea, which I guess I'll just touch on now, is that just like cells are part of an organ, and organs are part of a system, and systems are part of a body, right? A human organism is also a part of a larger human culture or society. And so it makes sense that the same processes that happen within us as single human beings also happen on a larger scale, right? And so we see the collective shadows playing out in front of us. Right, so for example, like we have that hero worship of like, oh, that person like is so amazing, I'll never be like them, right? That is also promoted by this collective shadow projection of only wanting to look at the goodness and the rightness and the glory of culture, and wanting to hide everything else underneath the surface, not wanting to face it, and wanting to leave things in the past, and trying to forget all of the terrible things that have happened in the past because we're so much better now, right? And we see this playing out, obviously, right? Let's see, the parts of our collective experience that we try to hide must also come out, right? Because we are pushing these things into the shadows. It has to find a way to come out, and for us to face it and to integrate it and to own it into our whole cultural experience, right? And we can consider and see much of the conflict that we're experiencing today as a continuation of this process of pushing things into the shadow, right? We refuse to face colonialism and land theft and racism and the pain of slavery, right? We want to just push that all into the past, and it doesn't work. It comes out because those shadows, those emotional resonances travel and are passed down generation to generation because they haven't been faced, they haven't been integrated, and they haven't been made part of the whole, right? So there's a lot of research coming out now that is showing how exactly how this happens, and it's in the genetics, but it's not so much like a genetic mutation. It's more a program that's part of the genes that then gets expressed a certain way, or yeah, and that's called epigenetics, right? It's the conditions that then bring things to be more likely to come out, right? Yeah, and there's an article here that you can click when you open up the slideshow file. You can read the article. We can talk about it. I can't go too much into this right now, but there's a lot of information out there about trauma being passed down generation to generation to generation through our genetics, and of course through the social systems that we are living under, right? Okay, so that is the shadow, and then next I will talk about the ego. All right, let me take a pause here.